Let's go.
Welcome to Citizen. We have a special guest today, Josh. I assume it's Lekach, is that right?
Yeah. Lekach.
Or Lekach, or I don't know. I mean,
okay, so in real life it's Lekach, but for the sake of just making everything easier for everyone, I've been saying Lekach over the years when I do the show or when I meet people in the sphere. So it's Josh Lekach.
Okay.
Super easy.
Fair enough. And you're the host of Wrong Opinion, which sounds like it might be kind of an offshoot of some shit Justin Trudeau said last year about the truckers. It's like, what did he say? They hold unacceptable opinions, whatever the hell that means.
Yeah, but it was maybe foreshadowing because I launched the show in like 2019, 2020 around then. So I just was seeing what was happening and also how we're labeled, like the basket of deplorables with Hillary.
Yeah, why basket? That was kind of a weird that was a weird turn of phrase, to be honest. I never really understood what that meant.
I was thinking about that the other day. I don't know why, but you're absolutely right. I had the same thought, and it actually kind of sounds wonderful. Like nothing ever bad is in a basket, you know, like a gift basket.
Yeah, and you leave unwanted children in a basket at the fire department, right?
True, and children are still, amazing. And or what about Moses in a basket? Maybe Moses in a basket, So nothing bad is ever in a basket.
I guess it depends on your point of view. I don't know how everybody feels about Moses. I'm assuming the witch doctors or whatever the fuck that he made look stupid weren't big fans of Moses.
Right.
But that's kind of their problem. They were statists, so I'm not really a fan of that guy.
Yeah. Demonic, satanic people hate anything in a basket. So that's a compliment, I guess.
So I guess that tracks. Yeah. So tell me about the show, Wrong Opinion. What is it?
Well, look, I'm not an expert with regards to anything. I'm just a normal guy, and I feel like because people are afraid to voice their opinions, there can never be too many opinion shows like ours, because people can lose their livelihoods. They can lose everything overnight. And I think it takes a certain kind of person to kind of not care and to create these sorts of shows where people can live vicariously through us. Because before I did my show and I would watch other people's shows, maybe like Gavin McInnes and Alex Jones or whoever, I always felt like a weight was lifted off my shoulders because, it was refreshing to hear someone or, certain people say very sane things that you wouldn't hear from the mainstream, or not even the mainstream media, not only the mainstream media, but like mainstream entertainment or just your friends, like normal people. Everyone's afraid to really say what's on their minds. Like I lived in LA for 12 years. I'm in Costa Rica now. I lived in LA for 12 years and I had friends who were NPCs. Like by definition, they were NPCs. They would only talk about things that were pre-approved. And then if I tried to steer a conversation outside of the pre-approved area, they'd kind of like shut it down because they didn't know who was listening. Maybe they also didn't really agree with it. But they're very afraid that they'll be exiled, and that's everything they have. I think that when people don't have strong communities, like if they don't go to church, if they don't go to if they don't believe in a higher power, then everything around them is kind of that higher power, and if they lose that, they lose everything.
I don't believe in a higher power, but I understand the sentiment. I mean, you certainly don't want to be in this is one of the curses of humanity, just being conscious, right? Like consciousness is it puts us in this situation where we have to either focus on ourselves or on the things around us. I think it becomes really problematic for a lot of people because anytime you spend all your time thinking about yourself, it's almost like being it's like working in customer service. You know what I mean? Like almost all the input you get is bad. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
If people become extremely either narcissistic, which I think is a defense mechanism against their own internal struggle, or they just collapse into their own internal struggle. But the reality of life is that every important thing you ever do will be done in the service of other people, right? So however you can whatever you can, I guess, build for yourself community wise and belief wise. For me, it's just liberty, but whatever you can build for yourself to maintain your focus outside of yourself. It seems like a good idea. Like, I don't know anybody that thinks primarily about themselves who's either happy or a good person. You know what I mean?
Right, right. And that's kind of like that's kind of my thing with religion. Like I understand it might not be for some people, but for the like general health of the average person, it's probably important in the sense that whether there is God or there isn't God, it takes people out of the universe of themselves. And everyone right now is in the universe of themselves. And like there's like this thing with young kids, Gen Zers on TikTok where they call themselves the main character. It's a thing like main character syndrome. They're a main character, and it's like, man, you guys are super self-absorbed, self-centered, and I don't know how society can function. And at the same time, there's this obsession with mental health, and you know, our lives have never been easier, and there's this obsession and emphasis on mental health. Like you even have sports leagues like the NHL talking about mental health awareness or whatever. And I can guarantee you people who worked in coal mines 100 years ago never gave a fuck about their mental health. No one, that was, I guarantee you, no one knew the term mental health. It wasn't a thing. And I wonder what suicide rates were actually back then compared to how they are now in first world countries.
Sure. Well, I mean, the irony of the self-obsessed Gen Z culture is that their rates of suicide, including amongst young women, which is suicide amongst women, generally speaking, is extremely rare compared to men. But for young women, for teenage women, it is extraordinarily rare until very recently, right? So I think it's double and then triple in some cases what it is for the general population amongst teenage girls right now, which is that's not something we've ever seen before. And, you know, it's mirrored. It isn't just in the general public either. Like, so what we found in recent military data is that this is for active duty military. From January to June of this year, there were more active duty suicides than all of last year, right? So we're effectively on pace to double up. And the vast majority of the people killing themselves are young soldiers and young troops who've never deployed before, right? So it's not post-traumatic stress. It is a disease that is permeating throughout our culture, and it has nothing to do with how hard life is anymore, which is a problem, right? Like there's very little perspective for these folks.
Do they know why? Okay, that's actually interesting that it's not even active duty and it's not because of PTSD. Has anyone been curious enough to look into as to why?
Well, the VA doesn't collect data anymore for veterans because the data was extremely uncomfortable, right, for Congress to look at. So they don't collect data anymore. As far as active duty, they're required to collect it to some degree. I mean, people are going out of their way right now to obfuscate this reality from the public so they don't see it. But I don't give a fuck about what the DoD wants. I know these things to be true. Now, it is, historically speaking, the rate of suicide amongst veterans has been quite a bit higher than that amongst active duty troops. And now that's kind of flipped a little bit. Not that veterans are necessarily out of the woods yet, but it is odd and not ordinary that young troops who are currently serving that haven't deployed yet are just killing themselves in record numbers. That's bizarre, right? But it does mirror the broader culture. Like these kids who are 25 and under are having big problems right now. They have no context for the world they live in.
Yeah. Not only that, but like it's you know how victim culture is kind of like the thing to strive for now. There's no line in the sand anymore. Like I saw, and I have to go on TikTok a lot for the sake of my show, and you know, so my listeners or viewers don't have to. It's a cesspool. It's the worst. But I saw this girl post a selfie of her crying, and then the caption was, "Pray for my brother. He just tried to commit suicide. My 12-year-old brother just tried to commit suicide," and it's her crying, and it had close to 800,000 likes. and then the update was that her brother did die. But the fact that she used that immediately, like that was her immediate reaction to finding out the news. I must post this on TikTok.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
must
yeah.
inform everyone that my brother, and in a way, like made it about herself. I mean, in a sense, it's a family issue. But um, I gave an example when I posted about that Norm Macdonald, an amazing comedian, had cancer for 10 years and didn't tell anyone, and we found out when he died. And I thought that was kind of absolutely amazing. It's almost like we forgot that was even allowed. That since we overshare everything, and we've been groomed to overshare everything, we forgot that was an option. That we didn't have to tell people, and he's a celebrity. So this girl like posted, "Oh, my brother committed suicide," and it makes the whole thing seem very disingenuous. Like she's just trying to rack up the likes and the attention from strangers online. And then not only that, upon further review of the post, I saw that she used a filter. Like it says when you use a filter, she used like a makeup filter. What are you doing? Like what is wrong with people? And what I want I'm sure your listeners know, but the TikTok that we have in the United States is not what they have in China.
Right.
They encourage good behavior there, and they encourage bad behavior in the United States because it's psychological warfare, and it's almost like we don't know we're at war with them, and they know we're at war with with us.
Yeah, it's funny. The other day I said something to the effect of how far into someone's paragraph about an issue or event do they make it about themselves? I think it's a good bellwether. Like if it's somebody that you follow, let's call it an influencer or some such nonsense, whatever people are called these days, or a celebrity or member of the media. How far into the dialogue does the story become about them? And if it's I think if you just pay, I don't know that there's necessarily an obvious line in the sand where it becomes problematic, but there's certainly I think if you consider that when you're reading people's material, you can tell if somebody is a self-absorbed piece of shit or not, right?
Yeah.
And then it's a good idea just not to listen to that person ever again, because somebody that's I don't think somebody's opinion is valuable if it is instinct to them to try to make it about themselves. You know what I mean? It's very cringy.
Yeah, I mean that goes hand in hand with people not practicing what they preach, which I feel like is most. If you want to kind of zoom into the world of influencers, like you can go into the world of influencers within the conservative movement, or whatever you want to call it. And a lot of these people, a lot of the talking heads, the very famous people, a lot of them, they don't practice what they preach. They probably don't really believe in it. And they're all, for lack of a better word, they're all hypocrites.
Yeah. And, I mean, it matters who you give your attention to. People, I'm honestly kind of exhausted answering the question, what do we do to fix things? Because no one is interested in actually fixing anything, I don't think, because it requires effort on your part. And we
yeah.
Go ahead.
I was just gonna say they're interested in grifting more than anything.
Sure, certainly the media personalities, I would say 90% are fucking grifters.
Yeah.
Like everybody that has this Saul on the road to Damascus story, where they had this moment of clarity when they were a previous liberal progressive person, or hold some dumb position, and they're like, all of a sudden I had this idea, and like, no, you're not. You read the tea leaves and decided it was more profitable for you to think this way.
That's found
really
your
happened.
niche.
Yeah,
you found your niche. It's completely disingenuous. And they're actually the ones that kind of like infiltrate and then try to slow down progressivism, but kind of still invite it, invite the degeneracy and all of that. But yeah, I mean, there it's just filled with terrible people. And for the question as to how do we fix things, the best answer I can give at least, and I think that maybe you'd agree, is you just focus on your own family and maybe your own community, and that's it. And then if a lot of people do that and they really, made it difficult for the people trying to disrupt normalcy, um, then I think that's it. Like I have my sister-in-law and her family. They live in Glendale, in California, and it's filled with Armenians, and they are kind of fed up with the liberal nonsense and the stuff in the schools, and they're kind of the only ones pushing back around that area. And that's kind of like a nice example as to what I was just talking about.
Yeah, it's interesting. People that it seems like the groups that are kind of pushing back on some of this nonsense are the ones that have some form of strong community, whether it's culture or religion or both, right? So there's a lot of Canadian Muslims who are pissed off
Right.
right now about some nonsense going up there. I think everybody's pretty much seen the Armenians in Southern California go into school board meetings and telling people to get fucked.
Yeah.
But yeah, it is. There is some. So to go back to your point from before, religion does provide a number of things that are kind of essential to having a strong civilization. It's like it gives you a sense of community, which being close to people and understanding them and having shared beliefs increases the amount of empathy you have for them as well. There's a lot of second, third order effects of community that are really important. It also gives you a moral compass that you share with other people. If you
Exactly.
cross cultural morality sometimes can be a tricky debate, right? This like, well, who am I to tell you how to behave and things like that. But when you do have a similar shared belief about what it means to be good, right? I think adjudicating conflict between one another and then, for third parties becomes quite a bit easier because there's an actual standard, there's an epistemology to the morality, and it isn't just made up on the fly. My personal lived experience doesn't trump reality,
Right.
you know what I mean? And then of
Yeah, I
course
mean,
there's a sense that something out there is more important than yourself. I
exactly.
think is the last part of that. I mean, it is we dumped religion, and the vast majority of people who dumped it, and some people that maintained, like held on to religion, but only in kind of a casual way. They never replaced that, whatever some people call it, the God-shaped hole in their life,
Yeah, yeah.
with something else. You know what I mean? Like you don't. We're not a theocracy, so nobody needs to be forced to believe in anything or whatever. But it is accurate to say that your life will be better if you believe in things. You know what I mean? Whether it's
Yeah,
religion or something else.
especially everything that they replaced it with is a cheap knockoff of what once came before. And I mean, you even look at like what inspired humans over the and also the consistency. That's the other thing. Like this is stuff that was that stood the test of time, that just like worked for thousands of years, and then all of a sudden, because of technology, world wars, all of these things, and globalism, they people are just like, F that. We don't need that anymore. We're above God. We are God. And then we just haven't replaced it with anything except with cheap knockoffs. Like what inspired humanity over the past thousands of years, brought out the best. It brought out, bad things, obviously, but there's always going to be bad things, as we can see with how we act today. So, it's not like without religion, we're all going to be hunky dory. That's not how it is. But we also, what inspired us before, like it was beauty. Like we created such beautiful works of art, such beautiful architecture, music, because we wanted to achieve like anything close to godliness. And now, because we threw all that away, I mean, just culture is terrible. We're not producing anything that's really beautiful or of value, or that will stand the test of time anymore. And partially, I think that has to do with the fact that we don't really care about the future. We were not doing anything for the future. I mean, and if you can see the birth rates as well, like we are not really too concerned with the future. But it's kind of funny, at the same time they're pushing, like as an example, global warming. and a climate emergency or whatever you want to call it. But why would that matter if we're not even having babies anymore? Why would any of that matter? What does it matter? You know? So I don't know. I think that people are severely confused. And one of the other things we replace religion with, one of the new things is transgenderism,
Mm.
which we were talking about family and we were talking about community. Um, the Christian conservatives of the 80s and 90s, maybe the early 2000s, they were always saying how there's a war on family. And we were all kind of like, nah, you're exaggerating. But it turned out to be true. And the reason is, and the reason why transgenderism is being so heavily pushed and why they want it to go hand in hand with the declining birth rates is because if you have families, if you have strong families and you have strong communities, then really the government can't and globalism, it can't really take root very well. You can't manipulate people who have a stake in the future and who care about something other than themselves. But if you start breeding people to be completely self-absorbed and self-centered, and their only offspring is like plants or their dogs or cats or whatever, plant moms,
Oh my God.
then you can really like convince them of anything. And COVID was a really good example as to that. Like people really just obeyed. It was so bizarre, especially like looking back, because after the fog of war and you just look back and you're like, holy crap, people really did obey without any sort of pushback.
Yeah, it's weird, right? So we've effectively in Western civilization replaced serotonin and effort with dopamine and expectation, right? And the results are obvious. We have myopic, dim-witted, sometimes mid-witted, unfortunately, because they can convince a lot of people. Mostly dim-witted people who have they don't. We've completely lost the association between effort and outcome now. We just expect a particular outcome. And you mentioned kind of how we used to, as a culture, look to the future a lot. Our legacy used to be like I'll speak for men because I think that's probably an easier example to make. But for men, the legacy is find a wife, have some kids, get a job, start a career, try to improve your life. But mostly it's about trying to give your kids a better life than you had, so incrementally, right? Like I want them to be the first ones to go to college, or I want them to be the first ones to start a business, or whatever it is, right? And I don't know how we do that now. I think there's a number of problems in Western culture that we are dealing with right now that we haven't figured out how to solve, and that's one of the big ones. It's like, how do we give our kids a better life than we had, because our lives were pretty damn good and relatively easy, right? Compared to most of human history, it's been pretty easy.
Very. Yeah.
I don't know what it. So I guess you have to drill down and focus on what it means to provide a better life. You know what I mean? Because our lives probably would have been better if we weren't latchkey kids. My generation, if we had had more time at home with mom, that probably would have been good. If we would had more time at home, more time spending time around our dad, and then just the broken home situation that became increasingly more prevalent during our time period. So, if you're thinking about now, if you're a young man thinking about starting a family and you're thinking about your legacy and what you're going to contribute to society, it's repairing the mistakes of the previous generation. That's what every new generation should do. We should try to build on the lessons we've learned, and we should try to repair the mistakes we made.
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of why I'm in Costa Rica. My parents were already living out here, and I didn't want to raise my son. Now I have a daughter who was born a month and a half ago here. I didn't want to have them, live in California, and I didn't want the influence there, like so I made the decision to move everyone down here, so we could live in the same building as my parents. And that's something I talk about a lot, is the importance of the generational household. Like, there's a lot of reverence for the nuclear family, which I don't really agree with, in the sense that that was the beginning of the end. That's kind of like what everything we see now is a result of the nuclear family, which was splintered from the generational household, which is how people used to kind of live. whether it be that your in-laws or your parents lived with you or they lived adjacent to you, but you always had people that were able to help you. And nowadays, the nuclear family, it was like, oh, we're going to move to the suburbs, be away from our immediate family,
Mm-hmm.
our extended family, and if you need help, get a nanny or daycare or whatever, and then the father will go into the city, work, and then come back at night. And that was kind of the beginning of the end of that sort of familial community. And the generational household works. I mean, it kind of like goes back to our roots as to, when we were nomadic and more tribal. And I think that, for instance, I think tribalism is good, and I think we need to go back to that.
To some degree, yeah, but it's there's definitely this is the point I bring up a lot in native culture here in North America. This isn't true for every tribe, but for many of the tribes, this is something that was common. That every older woman in the tribe was called grandmother, and every older man was called grandfather. Right? It was like a kind of an extreme version of what you're talking about. But this is the way that human civilization has been up until probably the early part or the middle part of the 19th century, right? I think like things like the gold rush or prospecting or homesteading and things like that, to some degree, began that process. But for most of human civilization, you didn't like it. It wasn't a thing for your children to move out at 18 and for you to see them,
Right.
4 or 5 times a year for the rest of your life. That's bizarre, right? I mean,
So crazy.
Even in modern Europe, there, in certain countries like Italy's not like that. In Italy, you live on the same property with your family your whole life, right?
Yeah.
And it's certainly where it insulates us from economic pressures that cause us to abandon our primary objective, which is to raise our children, right? Like we are in a situation in America right now where unless you're independently wealthy, it can be difficult to have a single income household these days, mostly because of, predatory mortgages and shit like that. Like the cost of things may have gone up, but there's no way, like I bought a house last year. There's no way that doing 2 weeks of paperwork should have cost me $26,000. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like that's ridiculous. I can handle it, but most people aren't going to be able to handle something like that. And where the rate of renting has gone up by 60% over the last 10 years. I mean,
So nuts.
It is people just don't own anything anymore, right? So that is a solution that makes some sense to me. Generational households. I'm not sure how prepared this generation is to go backwards, but I think we should look at as our kids get older. I do think that's something we should definitely take into consideration.
Yeah, I mean, think about how powerful a generational household would be. Like if if like boomers, they get a lot of hate, and I understand why. One of the reasons is like they kind of were one of the first generations to be like, okay, you're 18, go out, make money on your own, and then they live so lavishly, a lot of them, where they like just spend their money, and it's like, what about if you just stayed with your family and their kids and lived on a massive compound or something, and you guys pooled your money together and your resources, and think about how much more powerful your family would be. Yeah, they do that in Italy for sure. But this thing about kicking your kids out when they're 18, I think that's like, not to get conspiratorial, but the Rothschilds, I guarantee you, never did that for the 500 years or whatever they've been in charge of things. They keep it in the family. I think that's a very wealthy way of thinking. And even if you're not wealthy, I think it's positive to think like a wealthy person, and you shouldn't kick your kids out. And also, I mean, if you think about it, like this thing about pawning off your kids before they're 18, relying on the school system, relying on daycares and all of that, all you're doing is you're prepping them to rely on the same things when you are old enough for an old age home.
Yeah.
Like old age homes shouldn't be a thing, but all you're doing is you're like, oh, okay, you're pawning me off now. Okay, when you're an inconvenience to me, you're gonna be there. When in reality,
it's wild,
old
right?
people, it's so crazy. I can't imagine doing that. And also, I said this a few weeks ago, but the rise in dementia and all of that. Obviously it has to do with diet and lack of exercise and all of that, but I also think it has to do with lack of purpose.
Hmm.
And if an old person doesn't have grandkids, they're for sure going to get something like that. But if they do have grandkids and they're still an inconvenience and they're not being utilized, they're going to get dementia probably. But if you keep them around kids, it's going to keep them young and it's going to keep them alive and it's going to give them purpose.
Yeah, it's a good point. Yeah, it's that none of the extremely wealthy children of I'm sorry, none of the children of extremely wealthy people that I know who were kind of born into wealth do that. They don't. They may have their own places somewhere, or they may be in business for themselves now. But almost all of them, and I don't mean just like dumb, useless trust fund kids. I mean people that are
Right.
people that actually. I know people who are born into wealth who have pretty serious jobs. Are very successful in their own right, but they still at every opportunity find a way to go back home. Right. Now it's easier to do that when your home is a mansion and not a fucking trailer, but certainly it is part of the culture, right? It's like why do we feel the need to escape from our family at this point in Western civilization? It's kind of weird. Like my family sucked, but a lot of people that have let's call it benign upbringings, there's still that impetus to leave the home for some reason, and I'm not exactly sure what it is.
Yeah, it's part of the culture, and I think it goes back to what I was talking about, that the powers that be love the transgenderism stuff. They love anything that disrupts the family. Dude, look at even like, you know, I pay attention to commercials on TV, and yes, there's no more white people. I get it. Like it's kind of annoying. Like white people don't exist anymore. But if you look beyond that, when there is a white person, actually, the father's an idiot, or the house is in disarray. They have kids. The house is a mess. It's in disarray. Like they're really on any chance they get, they're trying to convince people that having a family is the worst thing in the world. You shouldn't do it. Do you have a family?
No, I don't.
But is it something that you? I don't want to get too personal, but if you don't want to answer, you don't have to. Obviously, it's your show. But is this something that you would probably want, or?
Oh yeah. I'm certainly that's in the future for me. Yes.
Yeah. So I think that you mentioned you had a terrible family, and you're probably gonna right the wrongs that you experienced. Like that's gonna be your goal.
Right.
So it's never too late to fix things like that. So people always have the excuse of like, oh well, I had a shitty childhood. I don't want to bring a kid into that. It's like, cool, don't. You're going to be in control of your family. You don't have to do that. You can stop the madness. You can raise happy, healthy kids in a stable home. But I don't know. People are very weak, and also again, they're super fixated on their mental health, and they're so crazy, and they have all these problems that they that's another excuse. Like they don't want to impart that on their kids.
Yeah, that's whenever somebody makes comments about passing on bad traits or genetics, that is always self-hatred. That's where that comes from.
I think it's a cope. I don't think it's real. Like I think that's a massive cope.
I mean, it makes. I think it's an attempt to eschew responsibility in your community while also feeling noble about it. You know what I mean? Which is kind of pathetic, to be honest.
Yeah. Well, I mean, everyone advertises their autism or whatever in their in their bios. Everyone all of a sudden has autism. I do actually think it might be the vaccines, but even if it's not, maybe if it plays like a little part in it. I think that everyone's kind of faking it. It's not real. Like there are people who are severely autistic, yes, and that where they got it could be a debate. But I think everyone else, kind of like an accent, it's it's just learned. You've been memed into it. The thing is like you're perpetually online. You live online. You don't interact with people in real life. So yeah, you're gonna have social problems. You're afraid to ask a girl out in real life. It's not autism. You've isolated yourself.
Yeah. There is something psychosomatic about the whole thing for sure. where people have been well, a number of different things have happened here. One, we've begun to, on the social hierarchy, kind of prioritize people who have some kind of affliction, even if it's self-diagnosed for some reason. I don't understand that part of it. It can be, it's like any other trait. It's something about you that can be good or bad, and it could be, I mean, unless you're like severely autistic, right? There's a lot of people who are high functioning autistic that what's the point of even bringing it up unless it's in casual conversation and somebody's curious about it. But to have it in your Twitter bio seems like a bit much to me. I don't understand exactly how we got here.
I think they're faking it. Yeah. There's always like these clips from the 80s floating around. There was one that was floating around in April, and then I used it on my show on Saturday, of people waiting in line for, I think it was Return of the Jedi or whatever, and they're all nerds, and it's someone interviewing all these people in the early 80s waiting for the new Star Wars movie. But these nerds had jawlines, they didn't look like they were soy infused. They didn't even look like they were high functioning autistic. They didn't have autism. No one had autism. They had jawlines. They were all relatively skinny, and they had personality. How is it in the span of like 30 something years or 40 years that our nerds just became completely like a different species,
Yeah, it's weird, right?
So something happened along the way. I mean, I think a big part of it is social media and just people just not having any sort of connection to reality anymore.
Yeah, and certainly I think it's for people's internal dialogue and how and their identity, their self-identity. It's a big problem, and I think it's also a big problem for the more nefarious types of tribalism. You know what I mean? Just the assigning yourself to some team or another, whether it be political party or nationality or race or whatever the fuck else, and then kind of having a standoffish attitude towards anybody that doesn't fit into your end group. That's always going to be a part of human dynamic, but when you separate yourself from communities like that, it happens way quicker, right? The tide turns against particular groups way quicker, and the truth is that it's hard to hate up close. You know what I mean? Like the whole thing with marriage equality in the United States, all the protests and all that bullshit, all the lawsuits, none of that mattered. None of that shit mattered. People started to find out that like their uncle's gay or some shit, and like, oh, he's just a regular dude that likes to suck dicks. I don't care about that. That's none of my business. And they stopped caring about it. You know what I mean? And nobody cared about it since then until they started bringing children into it. You know what I mean? So it's like once just having the temerity to be unapologetically yourself is one half of that equation, and the other half is you have to have the balls to just be in the presence of other people and have conversations. Like there's no version of any civilization where conversation and dissent are stifled and things work out okay. It just doesn't work that way. You know what I mean? Because ultimately it becomes the reverse of a meritocracy, and bad ideas. All it takes is one leader or one group of leaders who will have bad ideas unchallenged to completely butt fuck society, which we're seeing now, right?
Yeah. I mean, dude, with the gay stuff, like I never cared about that. I never cared. And now, especially because I have kids, and then you see like what's going on in the school system and how teachers are and all of that. I mean, that escalated so quickly.
Oh yeah.
So quickly. And I'm just wondering, like, how the heck did that happen? I just don't understand. Was it always a part of their culture and we just didn't know it? And then it just kind of, the mask is off, or did they get infiltrated? But then how do you convince like a large segment of the population that that's okay? I mean, one of my theories is the popularization and availability of porn, and that wormhole that goes, people go down when they get addicted to that. They get desensitized to normal stuff, they get into weirder stuff, and then they think like that's normal, and then it permeates through reality, and then before you know it, everyone's trying to convince us that pedophilia is okay.
Yeah.
That's one of my theories, but was it always a part of was it always a part of
Well,
their thing?
pedophilia
Or
has always been around. I don't know if I would necessarily have associated directly with the gay community because, the Catholics might take umbrage to that since they kind of led the league in fucking kids for a while. But yeah, it's definitely, I agree with that. I think we have more, I can't remember any other time in human history where addiction culture was so pervasive. And it isn't just porn, it's food, like people overeat
yeah,
now, and maybe
yeah,
it's maybe something about it is the availability of these things, but drugs, like we had what 85,000 fentanyl overdose deaths just last year. It's
yeah.
ridiculous. Like it's and I wonder if it isn't something certainly what you're saying about porn and being exposed to progressively weirder shit is going to warp somebody's brain, right? I mean, it's think about it like Pavlov's dog. You're doing classical conditioning, and
Yeah,
you're
exactly.
associating,
Yeah.
dopamine responses to certain types of behavior, and then, what's really funny is teenage boys between 14 and 19 now. So, post-pubescent teenage boys are reporting erectile dysfunction now from ordinary sexual
That is nuts.
instances, or I'm sorry, ordinary sexual events because they've been so conditioned by the fuck up, like the fantasy world that they can't they can't engage in a normal way with another human being anymore. So there's
Yeah.
definitely a fucking terrible result to this stuff. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah. Massive, massive problem. The thing also with porn or even weed, like all of these things have been completely weaponized against young boys and young men because it extinguishes the fire in their belly that would make them, a threat to the status quo. If you have them addicted to video games and porn and weed and all of these things, um, they're not going to be a problem. Our founding fathers were what? A lot of them were in their early 20s,
Mhm.
you know? I mean, those people today would be working in a coffee shop, balding. Their hair, they would be just balding and low testosterone, working in a coffee shop or something. But it's just crazy how it's completely unraveled and devolved.
Yeah, it is. And look, there's always going to be like none of this stuff is new. Pornography isn't new. Certainly,
The availability is though.
the availability, sure, but I mean, it's the availability of pornography has replaced the ease of acquiring a prostitute, right? I mean, in the middle of the 19th century, you could just go to any bar in the western part of the United States and pick yourself up a whore, right? So, there's always the opportunity for addiction, and a lot of
Well,
people
but
were addicted to like laudanum, which is opium back then, and a
yeah,
lot of people smoked opium. I'm sure there have always been alcoholics as well.
of course. Well, I
So.
mean, but you're still talking about the modern world in a sense, you know?
Hmm.
In a sense, that's still the modern world, but like just I think we feel it more over the last like 50 to 100 years. It's just gotten really crazy.
Sure, yeah, the availability definitely plays a role. So our response to that, I mean, I'm not, I am, I guess, I'm pretty close to an anarcho-capitalist. I don't think government serves any real purpose, but so from my perspective, the solution is never going to be to ban things or do any stupid shit like that. I don't think, I don't think it works. I think that's the most important part because organized crime is just going to replicate that service in some way if you ban it.
I think yeah, I think I would be an anarcho-capitalist if we still had our country. Like if we had a border, if we really did have a border and we didn't have an influx of like millions of people into the country a year, and then we would have a semblance of a certain kind of culture or something, but it's being completely eroded now. Um, like I kind of used to be libertarian, but I mean, not all, but a lot of libertarians kind of don't really care about borders. That's like the number one thing you should care about, if anything. Like that is the thing, you know.
I think if somebody says they're a libertarian and they don't care about the border, then they don't understand the ideology of libertarianism. Frankly, that's not a very smart viewpoint.
And also, what is a country at that point? What are you like? What are you even preserving? What is anything? You know, but we're so exposed to globalism now that we don't even young people don't really understand what the United States is. They
Mm.
probably just think it's a flag. They probably think it's a national anthem and a flag and a certain place on the map, and that's it. Because everyone's the same all over. Everyone's the same. All cultures are the same. But it didn't used to be that way. And if all the cultures are the same, then they're all shit.
Yeah, no shit. Yeah. Yeah. It's, a lot of people have different ideas about what America is. I would say it's not our government. It's not politicians for sure. It's also not the geography. It's not the 50 states and the territories or any of that stuff. To me, America is the idea that individual liberty and personal entrepreneurship are the ultimate inoculations to tyrannical bullshit. You know what I mean? And it is as Ben Franklin said, it's a republic if you can maintain it, right? Or if you can keep it, I believe is what he said. A
Yeah.
republic if you can keep it. And it's like, what's the underlying thought process there? It's that it requires constant attention and constant work. You're going to get out of it what you put into it, just like anything else in life. And just because, like, the ideology is sound, people will, these 16, 19 knuckleheads, and then, fucking white liberals from the Pacific Northwest will say things like, well, it's founded in racism and all this stuff. Like, yeah, certainly there are mistakes. There's no question about that. But if you ask somebody, if you were able to transport somebody from, let's say, 1920 to modern America, a black person, and be like, hey, do you think we're doing pretty good here? I think Vivek Ramaswamy made this point the other day. He's like, I think that person would probably look around and be like, this is pretty close to what we were looking for. You know what I mean? So it's like, that's the idea, though. It's not that we will necessarily ever arrive at perfection, but we strive for perfection. You know what I mean? That's the point.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that's no longer the point, though. Not in this country.
I mean, no, I think that spirit is kind of dying because it's like if you just look at it like a club, clubs have standards. They don't let some people in sometimes, and they let other people in. And our country used to have standards. Like we would really before I think it was like the 1965 Immigration Act. I mean, that really started to open the floodgates. We weren't allowing so many people in, and then the people we were allowing, they had time to assimilate. No one cares about assimilation anymore. Like I go to Los Angeles now I have this new job that I can't say what it is right now. But I go to LA now every other week, which the travel sucks, but whatever. And it's completely different than when I moved there in 2010, obviously. But certain areas are as if like, let's just say Mexico picked up Mexico and they're like, we're leaving Mexico, but we're still going to take it with us. And then we're going to plop it down here. And it's like, why did you leave to begin with then? Like, what was the point? And why, if you're coming, why don't you just come and then, like assimilate into American culture,
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
it is bizarre, right? To come from, an abject shithole
yeah.
to a place with the express intent of living a better life and then bringing with you the stupid shit from before.
Yeah, I don't get it.
Not to say that all Mexican culture is stupid shit, but if you're turning neighborhoods in America into favelas and shit like that, like
just have like some sort of self-awareness,
Yeah.
But that's the thing. People used to move to America and then assimilate, and they made it a point to become American, Now people make it a point to just kind of get as much free stuff as they can, and then send a lot of that back home, but really not change anything, not change how they live or think or anything. I just kind of think it's funny. Like I'm an American right now in Costa Rica, and there's a lot of expats here, and I'm gonna move back to the States. I just have to figure out where I want to, and whenever there's like a massive project here or whatever, it's an American making like a massive development that's like beautiful, So it's like we're coming to these places and just making like cool stuff for the people here. It's the opposite of what's happening in like South Central,
Yeah, well, maybe that's the way it's going to go. Maybe we're going to become maybe the original not original, but maybe the modern American becomes a diaspora at some point and seeds the rest of the world.
Yeah,
The world could certainly use it. I mean, Europe is fucked right now.
it's so crazy.
So the growth rate in America right now is 82%, which is not good, by the way.
Yeah.
Typically, you want it a little higher than that. I think I read I think I read today that the growth rate all around Europe is something like 6.5% right now, which is that is not sustainable. I mean,
No.
that's like most of Europe is going to be North Africa at some point, right?
Yep.
That's kind of where they're headed right now.
Yeah.
And look, you can do whatever you want. It's your country. You can do whatever you want. That seems like it might be a mistake, to be honest, because North Africa doesn't exactly have the best history of things like prosperity and human rights and things like that.
No, and I mean it's sad because the world benefits off of, as an example, the United States, like a strong, healthy United States. The whole world benefits. But I don't know where that's going to come from anymore. So maybe it's going to come from all the expats splintered across the world, kind of like you said, seeding these areas. Maybe that spirit will live on.
I mean, that's how Western Civ kind of expanded over the course of let's call it 1,000 years, right? I mean, European travelers or European. I struggle to call them discoverers because it's hard to discover a place that people already live in. I don't know if that's the right word for it. It's like because I would love to discover my neighbor's house because he's got some dope shit in there. But it's like that did a lot of the science and medical breakthroughs, a lot of the financial breakthroughs, and then the spread of things like English common law, right? And then the French idea of a democratic republic and things like that. That's where it came from. It came from people moving from one place to another. So it's not necessarily an intrinsically bad thing, but it is a kind of a silly thing to to do it in response to your home country getting all fucked up. You know what I mean? Like we should have been doing this before. Well, I guess technically we were, but we were just bombing places and then writing them a check and be like, "Hey, I hope you enjoy democracy." Which they never got.
That was a disaster.
Yeah. So
we
had the right idea, just the wrong execution, maybe.
Yeah. Well, so if we're gonna allow all these people into our country, I came up with a really interesting idea. And were you in the military?
Yeah, sure was.
Okay, so what do you think about this idea? The American Foreign Legion. So if you're a male and you're of military age, and you're healthy, your rite of passage to the United States to become an American isn't learning who George Washington was and then saying the national anthem or whatever, or the Pledge of Allegiance. Sorry. Your rite of passage is you have to join the military, and mandatory for minimum 2 years. And within the military, like they have school and all of that, and that's where you learn all of the civics, but you have to be a part of protecting our country. Do you think that's a good idea, the American Foreign Legion?
No, but yes. So let me answer. So I definitely think that some kind of mandatory service should be required. I think we should eliminate the foreign language classes in high school because they're fucking pointless, and replace them with some kind of civil service as a graduation requirement. At first, whether it's ROTC maybe for some people, but I think more along the lines of, maybe going on like mission style trips to foreign countries or something like that. If you're, an upperclassman in high school, but mostly it would be volunteering in your local community and stuff like that. And yeah, I think we should require 2 years of service from people when they graduate high school. I think, it should be, there's a lot of ways to do it, right? You can pick up trash on the side of the fucking highway. You can do it. There's a lot of things. You can join the Peace Corps. There's so many different opportunities to do stuff like this.
I was thinking about does the Peace Corps still exist? Because you don't hear about it.
Yeah, so I mean, it exists, but primarily it's just a throughway for people to join the government service, right? So a lot of people who intend to join one of the intelligence services or something like that, or work for the State Department, they go to the Peace Corps first to get some overseas experience. But yeah, it still exists.
Oh, but not like how it was intended,
No,
essentially.
I mean, I don't know how much good work they do. I think they're,
Yeah.
yeah, I think it's probably mostly a scam at this point, like anything else. But
Sad.
yeah, it is. But
That's sad.
it is. There are so many opportunities to help other people that you know, and not just help them out of the situation they're in, but give them the tools to build for themselves and make us all stronger. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
Healing someone has the added benefit of adding a person to your army and also not having to tend to that person's wounds anymore. You know what I mean?
Right.
So it's kind of a double impact in that regard. And we see it as an expense and not an investment, though, in this country. You know what I mean? That and it's anytime there's any kind of issue like that, an industry builds up around it, and the industry becomes just about propagating itself. Like homelessness, for example, the homeless industrial complex is a thing now, billions of dollars. And your former home of L.A., they've spent, I think, $1.5 billion a year on homelessness, and it is the biggest shithole in the entire U.S. right now as far as homelessness goes.
Yeah, someone's making a killing. Someone is scamming the government there. Someone got a government contract and they're just making a ton of money.
Oh yeah,
Uh,
but that's how it
I,
goes. It's the same thing with like the same thing happened to teachers unions and all unions in
yeah,
general.
yeah,
A noble idea that was supposed to represent people became about propagating itself, and then here's 6 bullet points that you have to believe if you want to be associated with us now. You know what I mean? It's really just all about making money. So I think while I like the idea of a civil service requirement, I don't like the idea of the federal government being in charge of it. I like the idea of it
right.
being local
Well,
service.
yeah. I mean, when I came up with that idea, I was thinking of like America in its glory days, I guess, doing something like that. Because you know that today they would kind of butcher it. They would warp it, turn it into something that it's not. Like, I don't know what you think about Trump, but when Trump was president, I was like, man, if I was younger, I probably would want to be in his army, you know? It would be cool. Like if he like, he kind of was bringing back that sort of nostalgic patriotism that maybe, I was born in 86, so it's just maybe from maybe it wasn't really happening, but it kind of he was kind of bringing back a semblance of like pride
Hmm.
for the country again, and I can imagine wanting to fight for someone if that's the leader. I could imagine like wanting to be a part of that, but I can't imagine it for I can't imagine it for Biden or Obama or even Bush. I just can't imagine fighting for these globalist types, these nation building
Oh
types.
yeah, yeah.
Um,
I agree with that. I think people feel that. We're definitely seeing it with the recruiting crisis that's going on now. And anytime anybody asks me about how to solve it, I always give them the same answer. And it is an old quote from a first century Roman senator. And it says something to the effect of men didn't love Rome because she was great. Rome was great because men loved her. You know what I mean?
hmm
So
hmm
that's the difference. It's like maybe it sounds trite, but it is that is a reality of the situation. When people have pride in something, it's broken window theory, right, on a grander scale.
Yeah.
When people have pride in something, then they put effort into that thing. That's how it works. When we have pride in being a father, for example, then you put your effort into being a father. When you're told that being masculine makes you somehow intrinsically evil, or that all of the other stupid shit that we believe as a culture these days that denigrate hard work, denigrate the idea of commitment and staying around and doing the difficult thing and stuff like that, then people inevitably turn inward and start thinking about themselves. That's just how it goes.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it was nice to feel some sort of pride for the country. I mean, it's so sad how fleeting it is, and how quickly it just disappeared.
Mm.
Um, but I mean, I want that.
Yeah, it
I
was
want
nice.
that.
I mean, I remember when we dropped that switchblade on Soleimani in Iraq, right? And
Yeah,
then about 20 minutes after his reported death, Trump just tweeted a picture of the American flag, and that was it.
exactly.
You know what I mean?
Super
It's
simple.
like I don't necessarily think we should associate all of our national pride with executing foreign leaders and shit like that. Maybe that's
Right.
not. But that one in particular, because that guy was a real piece of shit. He was the
Yeah.
guy that brought all of the EFPs and RPG 29s into Iraq. A lot of my buddies don't have legs now because of that piece of shit. But a lot of people don't remember he was also one of the masterminds of the '83 Beirut Marine Corps barracks bombings and things like that. He's
Right.
been at it for a long time. So it was nice to wipe that motherfucker out and then just say America for
That's it.
once.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I thought we were gonna get that back. Um, I don't know. I kind of still feel like somewhere in the future, it might be there.
Yeah,
But
it's on. I think it's on the horizon now. Um, I definitely do, and it doesn't hurt that one of the best things that's happened in American politics in a while is that Tucker Carlson got fired from Fox News because now
Oh.
he's like on a rampage, fucking up
Yeah.
neocons left and right. It's
Yeah.
very funny.
I
It's
was
very entertaining, but it's also really important to show these people, show everyone exactly who these people are.
You know how because I was talking about that the other day, and that was amazing, his thing with the Blaze. But you know how they say like politicians are liars? I hear that a lot,
Mhm.
obviously. Are they? Because they had every opportunity when they were talking to Tucker to lie. Just lie. Just pretend like you're on our side. And none of them lied. It's so weird. Like being a politician is the easiest job in the world. All you have to do is lie and then to make us feel good about you, and then do whatever you want, and there's no accountability. And none of them lied. It was really weird. They were all floundering. Like these were all softball questions. I was amazed.
Yeah, it's especially after the polling that's been done recently from the GOP showing that I think it was 95.6% of respondents said we should not be involved in Ukraine. And then every single
Yeah.
one of those motherfuckers, except for DeSantis and Ramaswamy, I believe, said that we should be involved in Ukraine. It's like, all right,
Yeah.
cool, man. I mean, your job isn't to have an opinion and then do whatever you can to get elected so you can go do that. Your job is to represent the will of the fucking people, right? That's
Originally.
allegedly that's the job.
Yeah.
Oh
Yeah.
my God.
But man, these like they're so incompetent. They're not like, how could you not be good at running for president? I don't understand. Copy Trump. Like if he's beating you so badly in the polls, just copy him. I mean, Vivek is kind of doing that. He's not really running against Trump. I think he's hoping to be a part of the Trump team, the ticket or something. But everyone else is just they probably have the worst consultants or something. But they're delusional. Like they're completely delusional. Like, what are you doing? I know that the people working for the campaign and the consultants and the campaign managers, all those people are enriching themselves. But why would Mike Pence do this? I mean, I think that the only thing is they're hoping Trump is going to be put in jail. That's it. That's their only hope.
Maybe. I don't know. That's not going to happen, though. So good fucking luck.
Yeah.
Well, we got to get out of here. This has been a really interesting and fun show. I like talking about this stuff. Tell everybody where they can find you, where they can find your
Absolutely.
podcast and all this stuff.
Thank you. Yeah. So it's on Gumroad. I know a lot of you might not know what Gumroad is, but Patreon banned me a year and a half ago after I was on Infowars. So I moved my show to Gumroad, wrongop.gumroad.com. And then on Saturdays, I'm on censored.tv. And yeah. And also I'm on Twitter, all those places, Twitter and Instagram.
Sweet.
Josh Lekach. Yeah.
Well, there you go. It's Josh Lekach, which is not the way you say it, but hey, what are you going to do? Yeah, everybody go check him out. Show looks fun, talking about stuff that you're not supposed to talk about these days.
Exactly.
If anybody's got a problem with it, they go fuck themselves. That's the short version of that. So
Thank you.
Thanks for coming today, man. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me.
Yes, sir. And thank you all for listening. This has been Citizen.